Hello, 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 everyone. Uh, it is I, the last comic book artist, Mitch Brightweiser. I am a 17-year veteran. 17-year veteran. Oh, shoot. The last comic book artist. 17-year veteran of the comic book business. I am here with someone with far more experience than myself. The man who knows, I think, probably all the darkest secrets of your favorite creators. And I might try to pry some out of him tonight. The legendary Art Thibert is with
Hey,
us. How are you doing, Art?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Mitch. I
Well,
really appreciate it.
thanks for coming on. Art, sounds like you've had a heck of a day.
Yeah.
What?
Well, I mean, just to back up, it was hard just to for us to get together, right? This is like the third time to try to hook up here.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I think your internet got cut by a. What happened? A neighbor cut his tree down or something, and he severed the line for the whole neighborhood.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's one freak thing after another. Yeah. So I'm finally here. So I'm glad. I'm glad of that. So today, um, I did it. I kind of had a joke show yesterday where we were counting all the different colorists that we've had on black and white for the last 2 or 3 months, and so we counted down 10 different colorists. So we finally got to the 10th one, and we were like, "This is it. This is the charm, right?" And so we're also just 2 days from going live on Indiegogo, and we still don't have a color covered or yeah, cover colored, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so today, yeah, that guy bailed.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, that sucks. So you have a color. You have a cover, but it's not colored, and you're going live in how many days?
In two, so we just yeah, tomorrow actually in one day. So we have tomorrow and then we're going live Thursday,
Okay.
probably around noon. Ethan told me noon's a good time.
Yeah, I started. I think I promised people noon and then launched at 10 a.m. I just couldn't wait. So that actually worked out pretty well for me. Um, I mean, we had a great first day, $50,000 on the very first
Wow.
day. Yeah, I think
Congratulations.
we. It's all circumstances are a little bit different. Mike, I think lagged a little bit in the beginning, and then his picked up later. But everybody charts a bit of a different course in these things. So, but we did have a great first day. How much left do you have to do? Have you cut a video? Do you have a video? Do you have you pre-done your tiers? Have you done any of that legwork in advance?
Yeah, the tiers are up now, so we have the whole structure set up on the Indiegogo site. So we have that done, and we have the video. But the video, you know how these videos are. They're they the artwork, the cover artwork supports the video. Like it's the big selling point of the video. So if you don't have a cover, then we kind of don't have a video either. So I need that cover because it's a big part of the video, and obviously it's a big part of the page, the Indiegogo, page, the cover page. So yeah, so everything's set up except for that darn cover.
Okay. Well, do you have a colorist?
Yeah, you know what? I think it's going to be for the better, but I said that like the last 10 times as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we I didn't have to beg too much, but I asked Kyle Ritter if he would come in. And Kyle and I have known each other for a long time, and when he was kind of well, I think he was amateur, he would do just pieces that he liked of mine, like from Deviant Art and things, and he would color them up. So he was already familiar with my style and he likes my work. And we both worked together on that. We did a little Lone Star, like drawing to help Mike out. And so Kyle just volunteered to color it. And so we had this nice like pen and ink wash, and then Kyle's colors over that. So Kyle's coming in at the 11th hour, and he's got the night and then tomorrow morning to color it up. So we have enough time to do some color notes and then to put it into the video and then to plug it into the Indiegogo page.
I think that's smart. Everybody loves Kyle. Kyle's awesome and he's reliable. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. I was going to suggest maybe you should contact Kelsey Shannon, who's also very, very good.
Oh, that's right. I don't know why, because Kelsey told me because I did a Batman Arkham Knight series, and it was the annual,
Hmm.
and Kelsey did the color work for that. Yeah. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, I forgot all about that.
yeah, he's been helping us a little bit. We're in a bit of a pinch ourselves. We're almost done with it, but we called Kelsey in, and he's been awesome. So he's been fun to work with. He's gonna be in my Rolodex from here on out. I liked working with him. Also, I think Kyle though may fit your style really, really well. And
Well,
I think he adds some cachet to your project. To be honest, is he going to color the whole thing?
no, he's just helping out on the cover, and we have like Mike. I'm hoping this guy will work out because I looked at his work. I don't even know how to say his name, or what country. He might be from Thailand, um, but Mike Miller turned me on to him. So I sent him a few pages, interior pages, and he's going to sample. He's going to do a couple samples and see what they look like. So based on, I think he's colored Mike a couple times too. So some brilliant stuff. I don't know if you remember. There's like that the the Avengers. It looks like a double page spread, but it's like all the Avengers from the movie, and then there's Thanos in the foreground that Mike did. This big pinup print, and he colored that, and he did a pretty brilliant job of that. So I'm hoping he'll work out, for the 48 pages for volume one, and then we're going to do a kick. We're going to Indiegogo the second volume as well in a couple months after we've delivered on the first issue. So it's kind of a two-part story, two 48-page graphic novels.
Yeah, everybody's going through the list here. We've got Brett Smith, Kyle, Kelsey, and of course Elizabeth. But she's all mine. I don't share.
I don't blame you.
She's also really expensive. So.
And you guys are brilliant together, so yeah, you don't want to mess with that team.
Yeah, I would like to. Well, we're working on some things here. I'm not going to tell you what we're working on quite yet. We may have some cool things in store in regards to colors and books and everything else. So, I'm just reading the chat here, laughing. Elizabeth told me that it might have been a little dramatic. Like, so your colorist left. That sucks. What were the circumstances?
Well, I had Brian Miller of Hi-Fi, and he had done 6 pages, and I had just sent him the cover. This was days ago, and so I know that he knew that I was Comicsgate, or at least had some allegiance to Comicsgate. I'm not sure to what extent he knew, but he knew enough to know that I was, hanging out with you guys and print
Hanging
and
out with us, people that like to sell books to customers who feel underserved by the current market. That's a very bad thing. I hear. I hear the words getting around that serving customers that might be upset with things coming out of the big two is a big no-no in comic book world. Don't do it, chat.
yeah, just
You're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be buying these books. You should probably leave now and never visit this place again. These are bad people, people like Art Thibert, who want to serve you with great comic books. And people call art, people are castigating people with terrible names for the sin of service to the underserved. I don't understand what the hell's going on.
I don't either.
My mind is totally blown.
Oh, yeah. Between when did the Brian thing happen 2 days ago, and then this thing happened today, I'm totally blown away, because the one thing I don't really understand about these guys that I've known Brian for years. He knows I'm a good guy. You know what I mean? Like, we've worked with each other for years and years and years at DC Comics. So I don't quite understand about, like, why. And then this is I'm sure you've gotten emails like this or conversations, Mitch, where they say it's kind of like it's not you, it's who you're associated with. So it's like, yeah, but I'm associated with these guys. I think they're good guys. Like, how can I separate myself from, you know what I mean? Like we're kind of a mirror image of each other. Where I just don't understand, like, where they say they think it's not insulting when they go, oh, okay. Um, Ethan's a Nazi and Mitch is whatever and Mike's whatever, and then they say, but you're okay. I want to stay your friend, but I'm not going to do your book anymore.
Yeah.
I don't quite understand that. If you're going to be my friend, then we 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 work together and we're friends. Otherwise, I don't quite understand it, because if you're saying those guys are that way, then on some level, aren't you saying that I'm like that as well? Like I'm a Nazi, or I'm, what is it? What did he say? He said that they were saying that Nazis and and white pride
Oh my
and
gosh.
that we hated women. Yeah.
Okay.
So
No, that
so
doesn't make
apparently,
any
Mitch, you
sense.
hate your wife and you hate all the women in your life, and I
Yeah.
do too. I hate my daughter and my wife. Yeah.
Yeah. People don't. I don't get those messages because I think people are afraid of me, and they should be.
Oh, good.
So, uh, yeah, it's true. They should be. Um, but yeah, they don't get that. I don't really get that very much. People just either stick around or they leave, and I don't give a crap what they do
Yeah.
because I'm here to serve the customers, and I don't really care what a bunch of people that are too afraid to stand by their friends uh, uh, think, because somebody that doesn't stand by their friends is no friend of mine. All right, well, now that we put that to bed,
And now we
and
can do
everybody
the
knows what I
interview.
think about it, now let's do the interview. I like to talk for a little while before I, put you on the spot to pitch. Let people come in. It takes a few minutes for everybody to figure out that this is the cool place to be, where all the cool kids are. I think there are a couple other live streams going on right now. So if you guys control those other streams, and have them come over here to listen to the great Art Thibert, and have him look, it's working. More people are coming right in. I see the numbers going up. Yep. All right. So we're with Art Thibert. If you haven't, if you're just joining us, if you don't know, well, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Art. Why don't you tell this audience who you are?
With pleasure. Art Thibert. I've been in the industry for over 30 years. I started off in the independent, so I'm familiar with independent comics. And I worked for Denny Lobert, who was Dave Sims' wife, and she ran Renegade Press. So I kind of did underground hippie comics for a while. And then I went over to Apple Comics, which was Wendy and Richard Pinney's company, the ElfQuest people. So I worked for them for a while, and then got tired of not getting paid. And so then I put a portfolio together for Marvel and DC. And I had been working as an illustrator all the way through that, so I kept my illustrator job. I live here in California, so I would commute into LA and show my portfolio and do work. I did novel illustration, like covers and interiors, for Bridge Publications. And I don't know if you guys know Bridge Publications, but Bridge Publications was L. Ron Hubbard's company, Mr. Scientologist.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't feel too bad because they were hiring Frank Frazetta to do some of their covers too. So I wasn't, and I don't think it had the reputation it has now, because I think he just had Dianetics out. I know I'm going off on a tangent, but
Oh no, that's interesting.
yeah. So he had Dianetics out, and I was in the office when L. Ron Hubbard died. Those people lost their minds. It was crazy. Uh,
Oh,
yeah,
so
it
they
was
were
the
all like in his cult, like the publishing company was all his, right? It was.
Yeah, the publishing company, uh, it wasn't as culty, but they definitely were affected by his death. I think they were always professional, and they never really made a move like, hey, hook me up to some kind of machines and put me through all that stuff that you hear about that they do with Scientology now. But yeah, I mean, it was really professional. They paid well, and I was a young, starving artist, so I didn't question it too much. And Yeah. So, interesting and comics related. I was hired to do a Battlefield Earth adaptation of the L. Ron Hubbard novel before the movie and everything. So this is like 30 something years ago, and I have like 8 pages somewhere around here that I did, where I adapted the novel and I penciled and inked some pages from that. Nothing ever happened, of course, and so yeah, I put a portfolio together. Um, got work at Marvel, got work at DC, and I got work the same day. I got work at Marvel as a inker and at DC as a penciler. So I started my career as a penciler and an inker, and so then from there, I did. I penciled Warlord.
What year
The
was
Mike.
this?
Oh my gosh, this is probably 83, 84.
Wow.
Yeah, I was a young
How
punk.
old were you?
I was probably 2021.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a kid. And so you're doing the math right now. You're like, oh, 21,
No,
it's
no,
2018. Yeah.
no.
Um, yeah. So I did that. And my big break came where Mike Carlin called me up and asked me to do finishes over Dan Jurgens on Adventures of Superman. And Jurgens had just finished his run on, I think he finished his run on Warlord just before me, and then the Kubert brothers followed Warlord after I did. So that book was quite a little tryout ground for new talent at the time. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Dan Jurgens or Andy and Adam Kubert. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. In my periphery, I think. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I just thought of something. Rob Liefeld started on Warlord too.
Oh wow.
Yeah, DC had a bonus book, and it was like a tryout, like new talent. And I think it was like an 8-page story that they put inside the comic books. So it was like an 8-page that went inside of a Warlord comic. And Rob and I were breaking into the business together. So I had my own apartment, and he still was living with his folks. So he would come over at night, and we would just work out of my apartment. So if you look at the backgrounds in his bonus book, Warlord bonus book, they're like he was just aping the backgrounds that I was doing in my Warlord stories,
Oh wow.
like the
That is
castles and
funny.
yeah, and the banners and stuff like that. He was just like, "What are you doing over there?" Oh yeah, and then it just showed up in his story. So, and then like I said, Mike Carlin called me and wanted me to do finishes over Dan Jurgens, and I thought I was being cool, and I thought this was kind of how professionals worked, but he asked me, "Hey, you want to do Superman?" And I was like, "Can I get back to you tomorrow?" And he was like, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, could I think about it overnight?" And he's like, "It's Superman, Art. What's your problem?" And I was like,
Man.
"Yeah, I just need a little bit of time."
Jeez.
I was playing it cool, Mitch. I was playing it
Oh
cool.
man, that's funny.
I still got the job. I didn't scare him off.
Wow.
So, so yeah, I did that for a while, and I kind of developed like this kind of bloopy style. Jurgens he would call it like liquidy, but later like at Image and Jim Lee and the all those West Coast guys, they nicknamed it bloopy, like a bloopy style. And I can't say I pioneered it because I was kind of aping Barry Windsor Smith, where he's kind of got that bloop, like it's a pull out, like a traditional thick to thin pull out, but it kind of has a bloop on the end.
I know exactly what you're talking about it, and I'm looking for the same effect, and it's probably from my Barry Windsor Smith like sort of obsession from high school and junior high, or really high school. Uh, yeah, and I don't know what he was drawing with necessarily, but I've managed to find. Well, we can talk about. We might bore the audience if we start talking about art supplies.
Yeah.
But I know exactly what you're talking about, where you have that sort of thick to thin at the very end. There's a little extra bloop of ink.
Yeah, just kind of put a little pressure on the end, like so it's a traditional like pull out, like thick to thin, and then you just kind of push down again at the end, and you get that little bloop there. And so I was doing all kinds of variations
So
of those
how
things.
are you doing it? How are you doing it? Because I found a different way.
Okay, you can do it like a pull out from thick to thin, like from the black out, and then just kind of push down again, or you can push down at the end, like the small end, and then kind of pull out and then go thin and then thick again into the black. So I can do it both ways. So how do you
Yeah.
do it?
Well, I mean, I found a tool that works better for me, which are really high-end fountain pens. Which
Also, you vary the pressure on it.
It almost yeah. If you just kind of like, you don't have to like really leave the pressure. You can either pull it across the paper and slowly pull it up, and that gives you because the really expensive fountain pens are made of gold nibs and they're very soft, right? I spent years looking for the right utensils to draw with for myself. I'm kind of obsessive about that kind of stuff. So they're high gold content in the nib, like 18 karat usually, and then that gives them a softer metal, so it gives them some flexibility. So you can put that pressure on it. It's much softer than working with a steel nib, and it's much softer on your paper. It's got these rhodium tips on the ends that help it be much more smoother. And of course, the pen lasts a lifetime. So
it does. I was just going to ask you. So that gold doesn't wear down.
Well, if you buy a very high-end fountain pen from a legacy seller like a Pelican or a Mont Blanc, you can send it into the repair shop, and they'll just put a new nib on it on the end, and they have them in various sizes and stuff. That's what I like to draw with, and then basically you can just hang it over there, and then more ink runs out through the feed onto the paper, and it gives you that little bloop at the end, or as you call it.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Anyway, that's what I use. I'll show them to you sometime. I just ordered a new one. I just ordered a brand new Mont Blanc in a double broad, and I'm pretty sure Barry Windsor Smith was maybe drawing with these types of things. I'm not really exactly sure. I've sort of tried to reverse engineer a lot of some inking from guys like Barry Windsor Smith and stuff, and if they would have used these, the Mont Blanc pens would have been, and many of these pens were manufactured since like the 20s or 30s.
Okay.
And so it's the same model basically. They've been making it for 80 years. So
I got to try that. Yeah, maybe I've been doing it the hard way all this time.
It's maybe, I don't know. I mean, you have your own way. I just find it like I don't know. I took the splurge. They're very expensive. I just kept chasing this particular feel, and that's I just chased it all the way up the ladder, buying more and more expensive pens, and then eventually decided, okay, I'm just going to get the most expensive pen, legacy manufacturer pen that exists, and that led me to my current pen collection. Anyway, that's what I do, and I'm boring the hell out of people. So,
well, if it lasts a long time, I mean, it's worth the investment, right?
Oh, it's something you pass down, and they actually accrue in value. So
yeah,
and then you have a service center, and I love having a service center available to me. Like I can just ship it. I busted. They also do pencils and all kinds of stuff, and I busted the end of a pencil and sent it in, and it's kind of a costly repair, but.
Well, you have to have 2 or 3 of those at a time too, because if you break one or you have to send it out for repairs, you still need to ink, right? So you have a backup.
I have a small collection of really high end stuff. So I can bounce around, and each of them have a little bit different kind of properties, and they feel just a little bit different in the hand and stuff. Anyway, somebody says I'm not boring them. Keep talking shop, and they like pens. So I guess we can keep talking about. I think
I've seen you do it. It's got a fairly thick handle, it's like a pin, but it's thicker, right? Like the handle is thicker.
Yes. Yeah. So my main pens are the Mont Blanc 149, and you can look those up. And a Sailor, which is a Japanese manufacturer that basically copied those pens after World War II. And they're a bit different. They're higher gold content in the nib, and they're softer and more flexible. The European Mont Blanc is German, and it's a stiffer pen, and they just have different properties and whatnot. But they're very thick, cigar shaped type pens, and they would be what's called I don't know what they're called. It's like the largest pens of their range. I like something really thick to hold on to in my hand. So I don't like to in fact, even with my brushes, I wrap tape, like electrical tape, around the ends of my brushes so that I have a thicker, meatier handle to hold on to. I
if
don't
you're
like to
inking,
pinch things.
yeah, if you're inking for hours, it's beneficial. I have that on my Hunt 102 as well. So I just kind of wrap it with electrician's tape, so it's a little bit thicker. Also, the Hunts have that little, it's like a weird like step in it. So there's like that main part where the nib fits in, but then there's a step down, and then there's the handle, and that step down is where your like middle finger kind of rests on it, and, and it's really painful. Like I don't know why they design these things like that. So I either file that down with a file that to round off that edge, or I do both and I just wrap it with some tape as well because I like the more substantial size handles as well.
Yeah.
What do you fill those
Size
pins with?
matters.
Yeah, size does matter. What do you put in the pins? Can you put any ink?
No, you cannot actually. That's actually one of the issues I had to solve. So when you get to fountain pen inks, so you can't, especially if you have something that you paid like several $100s for, you don't just want to go put any kind of ink like a speedball in these things because it will clog up your feed and then ruin it forever. So you have to purchase fountain pen inks, and they have like a wide variety of properties. They're meant for writing letters. Most of them are not permanent, like and all this kind of stuff. And they don't handle washes. But I did the Platinum. You've heard of the brand called Platinum? They make some. Anyway, they also make fountain pens, but they also make some art supplies and all kinds of stuff. Japanese company. They make like basically this. It's called Platinum Carbon ink, and it's this very, very black ink. It's a little bit slow to dry, but if you're working in I work with a dehumidifier around, so it dries a little quicker in a fan. But yeah, Platinum Carbon. They also make a sepia, and what they do is they it's basically carbon. It's real carbon, like carbon particles, and they're I don't know in some kind of process they're just blended into oblivion, so that they're just completely nearly atomized, and it makes this just basically carbon black ink. And the carrier, I think it's just water, maybe something else, but it dries completely black, and it's totally waterproof, and it's also completely light fast because it's just carbon. It's not going to change. It's burnt carbon, so it will last for thousands of years. So every drawing is completely archival that I do using this ink, and it's the only fountain pen ink I've found that is completely black, completely waterproof, and completely light fast.
What's the drying time on that? Because usually those fountain pens, the ink takes a little longer to dry, right?
Does take just a few seconds, and also depends on the paper and the humidity in the room, and I try to control that. So I kind of work in really weird ways. I had to find different kinds of papers. I use a thinner paper. I don't use Bristol board as much. I use like a smoother, thinner, waxier kind of paper. Well, not waxier. There are specific papers made for fountain pens and stuff. And anyway, like I use some of that kind of stuff. A marker paper I've found. I think it's Dread Letter. I can't remember the brand now. I'll talk about it on my channel. But I just have a bit of a different process than the standard comic book artist.
Yeah, I do not like inking in humidity. And does that dehumidifier take the moisture out of the air and so it doesn't permeate into the board? Because humidity is horrible on artboard and inking.
Yeah, well, I also live in Arkansas, and it's a pretty humid state. It's like a forest, nearly like a rainforest in parts sometimes of the year. So it can be very, very humid and hot, especially in the summer. So I have to work with in a climate controlled environment.
Yeah, it would probably be impossible to ink if you didn't, because that paper would just be like a rag, right? It would just be like a soaked rag.
Yeah, I definitely have run into problems, and my hands get sweaty too sometimes if I'm holding. And yeah. Anyway, so that's anyway. We're here to talk about you, and we got 84 people in here. So why don't let's talk about black and white. It's going to be we have dueling streams going on here. I think there are like 3 or 4 streams going on.
Well, I know Mike has his drawing stream, right? He's got all the drawers.
Oh, well, that sounds boring. Let's talk about black and white.
Hell yeah.
All right. So why don't you tell us about black and white, as I understand it, I remember it. I was there. as a kid,
Cool.
probably 13 or so. Black and White was an Image comic book, and it was like the second wave, wasn't it? Or third
Yeah,
wave?
it was. I think it was one of the first releases in the second wave. So I think Jay Lee's Hellshock came out about the same time, maybe Max. Yeah, the second wave books, definitely.
Yeah, and tell the audience how many copies you sold of issue 1. I think this is just a testament to a changing world and a changing industry.
I think we sold close to 700,000. My wife wrote 500,000 on the Indiegogo. You know, you have to write up the little write up there. But I think it was higher. I think it was because I remember the check, because the check broke down to almost $1 per cover. It was over $1 per cover. Yeah.
Man,
It was pretty
golly.
insane. Yeah.
That's just man, what a day that must have been.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to brag, but that was just part of it. Like even prior to that, when we were working at Marvel, we were making quite a bit of money. It was pretty insane. Like
Man.
that's one paycheck, but like that, like Cable #1 that I did, it was a double size that I did with Fabian and ECS. I did the pencils and inks. That check was pretty astronomical as well. They were good times, Mitch.
Well, you definitely give me something to aim for. I mean, we just received this past week our Indiegogo funds for Red Rooster Golden Age, and that was the largest check I've ever received in my life. So that was nice. That was very, very nice. But we, you know, this is out of 3,000 backers, and we have a lot. That's a gross. So not a net. So that's going to be, there's a lot of expenses that are going to have to come out of that money.
Well,
We got
what
to
some
print and
people
fulfill and pay ourselves and all that kind of stuff. So
Right. What people don't understand is that Total has the shipping costs in there as well, right? So the shipping costs get added to your total.
yeah.
So when people
So
see like let's say you just throw up $50,000, like I don't know, a third of that could be in shipping costs, right?
that's right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is going to be we're going to run into some expenses, and I don't. It's yeah. So we got to figure out how to do it bigger and better next time around. That's for sure. But yeah, that's why we're here. We're trying to talk to this audience and reintroduce them to comic books and talk to them about the way it used to be and try to get that excitement back. So why don't you tell us about Black and White? What's the story and why are you remastering it and putting it on Indiegogo?
Well, the reason I'm here is every time I go to a convention, people ask me, when are you going to bring it back? So for 25 years, I've I've been trying to answer that question. And you know as well as I do, these dream projects, when you're working, 9 to 5, 7 days a week, like Marvel and DC work, you don't have a lot of time to put into your creator-owned properties and your dream projects. So it took me 25 years to kind of get to this point, on and off, reinventing, inventing, things like that in my spare time. So it finally came to, I just have to do it or I'm never going to do it. So, and I was going to do it through Kickstarter, but then I was talking to Ethan and then, Mike Miller, and this is before I knew you, that they were saying, hey, why don't you bring it here? And so I had worked with Mike. Mike had a publishing company, before. And so I had published with him another creator-owned project. And so I don't know, you guys just made it very easy. And I would say I'm 90% in line with all your beliefs and everything. And I like what you're doing here. And I like the business model. I like hanging out with you guys. My gosh, I haven't hung out with people that didn't get their panties in a bundle and have hurt feelings, and we could just cut each other up and have a good time like this in a long time, because the industry is pretty sensitive about things.
I think well, what I think about that is I think they're afraid.
Yeah.
I think they're afraid. I think they're afraid of people thinking bad of them. I think they're afraid of not getting work. You have creators out there telling people that this is a family.
A
No, it's not a
cult?
family. Yeah, it sounds like a cult. You're all my competitors. That's the way I've always looked at this. I'm out here to compete and compete for customers and compete by producing the best product and the greatest art and the coolest story. And a family is by its very nature limited and small. And if it doesn't go outside the family, then it gets incestuous and weird, which is I think where
Yeah.
we're at today.
Yeah, I think one of the cool parts about the way you guys have structured this is we are competing against each other, but not in a petty way. And also we're strangely connected. So if I act petty towards you or Mike or Ethan or Antonio or Doug or anybody else, then it comes back on me and it's bad for my business. So in a sense it keeps us all honest, and it's the best way to compete with each other, because we it's counterproductive if we end up cutting each other's throats or trying some kind of hanky panky towards each other. And one of the other things that I really like is, like, Ethan had this platform, and then he shared that platform with like the first waivers, like you and Mike and whoever else. I think it was just you guys were the first waivers. Uh, and so he shared that with you, but now, like today, you're sharing that with me. You know what I mean? And then I'll do that to the next and then the next. And so we each kind of keep building, and we build that next wave, so then we can keep going strong, because if we don't, we'll stagnate and then we die. So I think we all kind of understand, if we keep paying it forward and we're cool to each other and we're cool to the audience and we're cool to the new guys coming in, then we can kind of keep building this in a way that I don't know if any other publishing company. I was there at Image. Those guys were, oh, they were at each other's throats constantly. So yeah, there was not like, hey, Art, come on to the show. There was none of this stuff that you're doing, like this, like the show that you're sharing with me, Mitch, which I do appreciate, by the way. This is amazing and crazy generous. So don't think I don't understand that, because I do. And you don't have to do this. That's the thing too. You don't have to do this, but you are doing it, and that's why I don't understand these guys. I don't understand they can't see this kind of generosity. They can't see how we're kind of lifting each other up and trying to build a new paradigm, a new way of doing business, and taking it right to the fans. I don't know. I sound like I'm hard selling this whole thing, but it's pretty amazing.
Uh, yeah, I mean, we'll just have our space where we talk to customers and talk with each other and share our stories, and they can have a space where they castigate customers and instill fear in other creative people, and we'll see who wins.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
Ben Thomas says Comicsgate isn't a pie; it's a pie recipe. I like that.
Ooh, yeah. Let's
That's
make
very,
more.
yeah. So we can make more, and I think there's sort of a within the arts. Art, you may speak. You've been in this longer than I have. So within the arts, there is sometimes maybe a misunderstanding or a lack of understanding of capital pursuits. We know here that a rising tide will raise all boats. The new guys can come in, and that they see it and they want to be enthusiastic to the customers and try to provide a great product and try to, put a little bit of personality out there and whatnot. That, as we expand our franchise, that's great for everybody, and we can share a little bit. And I think the audience loves it too.
Yeah, I agree. And hopefully, you guys obviously took the most, heat. It's happening to me now. So hopefully in time we can take the heat. So a lot of the new guys coming in, the third, fourth, whatever wave comes in, maybe they won't have to have this kind of opposition. Maybe it'll be more like, the industry will welcome us, will embrace us, will see us as like us for what it is, doing great comics and bringing it right to the readership and caring about people. I think this is so amazing. We're talking directly to the audience that will be buying our book. And I don't see that going away.
No, and I love this chance to remind them of what comics used to be, Art. And you were there. You were there in the middle of the chaos. Can you just take us back? Can you take us back a little bit? And I want to talk more about Black and White, because I think we have more people coming in. We're going to talk more about that. I want to know about the story, because I haven't read it obviously since I was probably 13 or 14. So, but take us back, walk us back to the early 90s, the mid 90s, the Image days, when these guys were selling hundreds of thousands of books, and they were trying to artists were taking the reins and trying to turn into businessmen. What was this like, the general tone and tempo?
Well, it started at Marvel. So I just think that these were guys that they were good artists. But I remember having a conversation early on with Jim Lee, and we saw Alfredo Alcala, brilliant artist. He used to work with John Buscema a lot, but he was brilliant in his own right on Savage Sword of Conan and stuff. And we saw him at a convention that we were both at, and we were just breaking in. I think he was doing Alpha Flight, and I was doing Teen Titans or something like that. And he was penciling, and I was penciling and inking myself. And we just went out. It was a party or something, and we came out of a bar, and we saw Alfredo Alcala kind of sitting there, and he looked. And we saw him earlier on the con too. Like, no one was paying attention to him, and then we saw him just kind of sitting on a curb alone, and we were like, "Oh my gosh, that's Alfredo Alcala!" And so we just started talking to him. We hung out with him, and he was kind of down and out. He was kind of at the, I guess, beginning end of what this industry does to people. And we left later, and we just said, it's never going to happen to us. Like, it's never going to happen. And I remember having this conversation with Jim Lee, and we said, how could we prevent this? And we said, either you create a studio, or you create a character that has a life outside of yourself. So if you can create something iconic, like at the time I think there was like Nexus and the Ninja Turtles and stuff like that. So if you could create something for yourself that could possibly live beyond you, or if you had a studio that you could possibly start up and then have it have a life out, where you didn't have to be there day to day, and then it could kind of run itself. That's a way to do it. And I've tried both, but I've tried both in a part-time way. So I had Hack Shack Studios, and I had created, obviously creator-owned properties, Chrono Mechanics, Black and White, and some others in the past. Excuse me. So I remember having that conversation. And so we just kind of we made one of those pledges, that you make to yourself. And so, a couple years later, I'm working on Adventures of Superman, where Jim and I were both West Coast guys, and we just started hanging out again, and he needed an inker on Uncanny X-Men. So this is before the big X-Men. And the X-Men were already selling pretty well. I think he was filling in for Mark Silvestri or something like that. I think Mark Silvestri was doing the Uncanny book at the time.
So this is like 89 then, or 88?
Yeah, I think it's late 80s. Yeah, this is before the 90s like Image thing. So this is kind of setting up to that. And so I just really think we were all kind of like this Comicsgate thing. We were all like-minded. Like, we all found each other somehow. So like Rob, Jim, Will, Scott, even Silvestri, we were all West Coast guys. And so we all hung out all the time. And so it just kind of evolved into that. And I remember, Jim saying, like, we got Wilson, we got Scott, and would you want to come on full time and either ink me or Will's Portaccio? And so I was like, cool, let's do it. So I left Superman. DC didn't want me to leave, so they gave me a bunch of pencil assignments. So I was the regular pencil artist on Action Comics, I think. So I think I did a year run doing the covers for Action Comics all the way up to the death of. So I got to do Doomsday, like one of the first appearances of Doomsday. It's the 600 Miles to Metropolis cover where they're kind of lunging at each other in a profile, and the billboard or the highway signs right behind them. And so Mike didn't like the split loyalty, so he cut me loose, and so then I was Marvel full time. So I think, yeah. So then I was inking Jim, and then I started working full time with Wills on X Factor. So we did maybe almost a year's run on X Factor. And like I said, I had a studio, so Scott wasn't quite as fast as I was. So my studio did a lot of the backgrounds for Scott in those days. So we were doing a lot of the more laborsome backgrounds at the time. And so, yeah, so then I just remember being out with my girlfriend one night, and we went out to a restaurant, and I had my mail, and I hadn't opened it, and this was later my wife actually, and so I opened the check while we were eating, and it was a check for $20,000 in royalties.
Wow.
Yeah, for one of the X-Men books, and I was like, holy crap. And I remember calling Jim the next day, and he goes, yeah, we already have, because I think 6 months, or it was like a half a year that you get royalties in those days. You had to wait like 6 or 7 months to get paid. So we had already done 6 or 7 issues. So I already had like $20,000 for, times six that I had already done. So,
Wow.
and the numbers kept going up every month consecutively. So that was just kind of the beginning. So, gosh, it was really insane. And I remember helping Todd out, because then Todd somehow befriended, or Rob Liefeld befriended Todd. I remember when that happened, because Rob started going from this really nice guy to this like crazy business guy. I just remember Rob always like, Art, you got to formalize. You got to formalize your work. It's just about doing things fast. It's about formalizing. I go, I want to be an artist, because I was still going to school. I always took life drawing classes, even in the evenings. And he's like, no, no, no. That's just whatever, artsy fartsy. He goes, don't think artsy fartsy. I go, I just want to be a good artist. He goes, no, 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 formalize. I'm trying to do my Rob Liefeld because he talks very fast.
Mm-hmm.
And so I never totally subscribed to that. I always kind of wanted to be an artist that people respected. So, but I understood where he was coming from. Like, the only way you really do get a paycheck, and back then, this is a little bit before the big numbers came in, but you still had to make a monthly. You still had to make a monthly schedule.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so we did that, and then I remember Wizard was coming up. So Wizard and Great Eastern Comic Con, and there was a couple other people that were sponsoring shows and hiring us to go do their shows. So collectively, like Jim, Wills, myself, and Scott Williams, we would do these shows. Scott didn't do a lot of those shows, though, now that I think about it. It was mostly just Jim and I, and Wills would show up every once in a while. And so we would go to these different states, different cities, and it was this big X-Men tour. And so I remember Larry Stroman. Like, what would happen is Jim somehow would get other X-Men artists in these different cities to come to the show. And so then we would hang out afterwards, and we'd start talking about this wacky thing called Image Comics.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So Jim was already recruiting people to Image Comics before Image Comics was even official, before we even really knew what Image Comics was. And so I just remember, like, he is a crazy, crazy cool business guy. I admire, hats out off to that guy. I think he had a vision of what this industry could be before anybody even realized it. And I do think it kind of came from that early conversation that we had about, like, I just don't want to end up like that guy. I mean, you hear about it all the time, even like Jack Kirby, or the creators of Superman and stuff like that. Like, this industry doesn't really show us too much respect. I think the fans don't know what's going on, really, but the companies themselves don't always treat us, you know, the best. So I think what you guys are doing and what Image was doing was trying to take care of ourselves, trying to look after our own interest, and realizing working for Marvel and DC is fun. Playing with Spider-Man or Batman or Superman's fun, and I've had 30 years of that. But I think now I want to create something that's mine and be part of a cool movement again of like-minded people that are doing great properties. So yeah, I think the rest is history. Like we ended up, forming Image Comics, and I stayed at Marvel a little bit longer just to finish up my cable run, my obligation to Bob Harris and Marvel. But then, as soon as that was done, I came over. But I was already working out of Extreme Studios at the time, so even when I was drawing cable, I was working out of Rob's studio, and Rob even helped me lay out the third issue, I think, on that book because I was getting behind schedule. So yeah, I did that, and then Rob gave me the green light to do black and white, and I went through the Image partners, and unanimously they said, "You want to do." You want to do black and white? We're all behind you. So all seven of the guys gave me a green light. So within a couple months, I developed it with my wife, and we put out our first issue. And like I said, where we started with the numbers were insane.
Yeah. Well, that's a wonderful story. I mean, I was watching, and obviously hundreds of thousands of other kids were watching too. I was, I wanted to be a comic book artist since about 89, 90, probably about 90. And then the Image thing happened, and I just watched the whole thing. And then from that very moment, I said, well, I mean, I watched it flame up and then flame out in spiral out in all its various directions and stuff. But I knew right then that I wanted to create my own stuff. I didn't want to work on Spider-Man. I didn't want to work on the X-Men. I wanted to make my books. And it's been a sort of a gleam in my eye ever since. And I've been working towards those aims quietly and behind the scenes and my entire career. And
It
so
sounds like
now
our paths are similar.
yeah, yeah. Oh, okay. Well, you knew going in that you wanted to do your own stuff as well.
Yeah, because I started off, like I said, in the independents, like with Denny Lobert and Renegade Press. So I had pitched a couple things to them and was kind of developing stuff even then, when I was first breaking in. So my heart was always with independence, like you.
Well, yeah, I think this is our moment. My lights are turning off here. This is our chance. I mean, I feel like. What do you think is something struck me about what you were saying? Because that's different between now and then, and that's the money, the book sales. Why do you think, Art, that when the money was hot, people were willing to? Well, there was no risk in it, I guess. What do you think is holding people back now from doing what we're doing here?
I think it's like you said, when you were a kid, there was a sense of enthusiasm, there was excitement. Those guys were showmen, they were salesmen. They got out, they took it to the people. They were throwing comics. I don't know if you ever seen some of these clips. They would get up on tables and throw out T-shirts and throw out comics to people. Rob was going on TV shows. I mean, we were kind of rock stars, and we were also doing rock star numbers. So we would have, if we were rock stars, if we were Bon Jovi, we'd have a series of gold and platinum records on our wall right now. Because we were selling millions of copies of books. Um, so like Cable sold 1.5 million books. Cable One. That's a lot of books.
Yeah, no
And
joke.
yeah, and so
What do you think's holding people back now? What do you think? What do you think the difference is? Like, I can't be the only one. We aren't the only ones that have things we want to do and share with the public and IP that we want to create. I know we have Image Comics now, but it's like a shell of its former self, and it's not. In my opinion, not. I mean, it's way riskier to do that than it is to come and do Indiegogo.
yeah.
What's holding people back, Art?
Um, That's a great question. I'll try to answer it, and then I want you to try to answer it after I do, because I want to hear what your take is on it. Um, the only thing I can think of really is, and I know this is going to sound a little bad, but I think it's been years of not so much beatdown. I can't think of a better word for it, but and it's not disrespect to the readers, but not exactly giving the readers what they wanted either. There wasn't a lot of fresh ideas. There wasn't a lot of new things happening. Um, the last I remember, the last big hurrah, I think, was the Ultimates, and I was part of that. So we had the Ultimate X-Men I did with Kubert, and the Ultimate Spider-Man that I did with Bagley, and it was Bendis writing, and it was Mark Miller writing, and I think there was a sense of these guys were independent writers, and they were coming in, and Marvel had enough common sense to kind of hear those guys out, and they had good ideas, but I still think that they were focused because I do believe, because I had a conversation, because the one who brought me in was Bob Harris into the whole Ultimates thing, and I remember Bob selling me. He goes, it's going to be like a reimagining of the Spider-Man X-Men stories, and we're going to do it because we need to get new readers. So we're going to start it all over again with these origins, and like the other stuff never existed. This will be a universe unto itself, and then they would have wider distribution. So I remember there were magazine size Ultimate books that were in like supermarkets and things like that. There were digest size, the little like digest, gosh, who does, like Archie and Disney does the little digest books that were right at the checkout. So they were playing with formats, and then of course they had the comics, and then they were repackaging the comics, like the X-Men and the Spider-Man stuff together. So there was a little bit of like excitement, and there was a definite push to try to broaden the audience again, get it into more like not direct market, but you know what I mean, like supermarkets and newsstands, where it wasn't all specialty shops and things. And
Yeah.
I thought it was a good, excuse me, a good idea. And I think the regime after that took credit for it, but I think it was Bob Harris's. I think it was before Quesada. I think Quesada helped recruit like Bendis and Mark Miller, but I do think it was a Bob Harris idea, because I
What
was,
year was this, you think?
oh
Was it
my
2000
god,
or
early 2000. Yeah, I
you know,
can't remember the actual year,
or
but
almost 99 or something? I can't remember now.
yeah, it might have actually still been late 90s. Um, so I thought it was a good idea. Bagley and I both joked we'll do 6 issues and it'll be canceled, because I think John Byrne had just tried to do like a Spider-Man year one. But the thing is, it did work, and it worked for a while. But this is what this industry has to stop doing. They have, because after that, that's all everybody did is we're gonna cancel the line, and we're gonna have issue a number one. We're just gonna keep rebooting, and I think that ended up hurting things, because nothing was real, nothing felt permanent, and they all felt like cash grabby money. Like, let's just get some quick money by putting a number one on, slapping a number one on the book, and so. And then what happened with the Ultimate line is it became a continuity problem, because the whole idea was that it wasn't going to be like your parents' Spider-Man with all these decades of baggage. And this is where I think the industry gets it wrong. I never had a problem with coming in on a book. Like when I started reading Batman, it was in the 60s. Well, they already had 25, 30 years of Batman books that came out before that. So I never looked at it like, oh my gosh, this is daunting. I have 25 years of books that I have to go through to, catch up to the current book. I never thought like that. And I don't know, Mitch, when you were young, didn't you go, oh, uh, now I can go to the back issues. I can find out more about Batman. So I can pick up the one that's out on the newsstand now, and then I could go to the back issues and pick those up as well.
Hmm.
I never looked at it. It was like, oh, this is daunting. This is crazy. Like, no, just keep writing good stories. Maybe some of them could be ongoing stories, like 2 or 3 issues worth, but make more one and dones and just keep writing them. Because if you do one and dones and you do more of those, then those things are already entry level. You know,
Yeah.
if you have a year worth of storyline, which they do now, and they have these big overreaching story arcs, well, that's intimidating unto itself. Because if you come in on issue 6 and you miss, you know, the first 5 books, then you are, you know, like, what the heck's going on? Because the story is dependent on it. But if you come in on like Spider-Man, I don't know, 50, you know, and you know, then it doesn't matter, because if they're one and dones, then you just go back and you just get another cool Spider-Man story, but you don't get this crazy overarching storyline. So I think, just to answer your question, is I think there's just a lack of enthusiasm, and I think we're kind of, in a way, we're overthinking what people want. I think people just want good action adventure. They want good storylines. They want one and dones. I remember when I was doing Superman, and we used to have these Superman summits where everybody would hang out and we would all talk. Like, what do you want to do with Superman? And then Jerry Ordway would always say, let's kill Superman. And then eventually that's what we did. But, but the conversation was always like, Superman's not cool in a contemporary setting. And I was like the only one saying, no, Superman is cool. You don't have to change Superman. Just put him in a contemporary setting and still make him the truth, justice, American way guy. He is corny, but if you show in the story that his way is the right way and that he inspires people to be like him, then if you structure the story that way, then he's not going to seem corny. He's going to seem like the guy that's right. He's the guy that's going to seem like he's trustworthy. He's going to be the guy that you would follow. And they did that with the Marvel Captain America stuff, the movies. That's Steve Rogers. The reason he's the leader of the Avengers is because you don't have to question him. He's going to do the right thing. He's not going to be self-serving. He's going to do the right thing. And then you can have a gray area world around a character like that, but the character doesn't have to be gray area. He doesn't have to start being gritty and kill people and, you know, have all these gray area dilemmas that, you know, like, I don't know, Wolverine or maybe somebody like Batman would. He can still be that guy. And I never quite understood that Superman can be cool in the contemporary setting. Just have him be that guy, and just have him do cool stuff. Like the Hulk. If you're going to write the Hulk, don't get overly complicated with it. Just have the Hulk destroy cool destruction, right? That's all you want to see as a kid. You just want to see the Hulk get in a situation where he has to Hulk out and then pull a jet plane out of the sky, you know, and throw it at a tank. That's all you want. You don't want all that other stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I think part of what you touched on something that actually I think is really important, and actually something that I think bothers a lot of people today, and they don't know how to put it to words. Maybe they do, but you change the point of view and the context of the character, and then you're immediately lost. So like you were saying, like there's this whole, like, the whole back issue thing, like, oh, you got to understand 25 issues or 50 issues or 100 issues of what went on before. Well, no, you don't. That's not actually intimidating. You can jump right in.
Yeah.
But if you jump into something and then the point of view of the character is not what you've been we're already sort of pre-programmed. Like, these are archetypal characters, and we're sort of aware of their archetype just through naturally or through the culture. You jump into Superman, you're expecting a particular archetype. So if he's all of a sudden edgy, then the reader is lost. Or like, well, how did the character get this way, or whatever? Or like then you have more to unravel and unpack. I think you're right on the money with Art. Very, very, very great observations.
I think you said it better than I did, though.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that. Well, we got people coming in. We have a lot of people coming in now. So somebody must have just ended their stream. I think there was a big draw off, which I decided not to compete in because I didn't want to embarrass anyone. So welcome everybody. I'm here with Art Thibert. We're talking about some image stuff, talking about Black and White, which launches in 2 days.
Yes.
So Art, now that we have people here, why don't we tell them what Black and White is about and why they should buy it?
Okay. Well, Black and White is the remastering of my '94 Image series, and uh, we have a tagline which I always thought was cool. In a world where law and order is often blurred to gray, justice can only be black and white. So I always thought that was a pretty good setup for like what we were talking about with Superman. Reed Blackett, who's black, is that character. He's that guy that you don't have to question his morality. But where I do get into like more of a contemporary aspect with the characters, because I do realize that in a contemporary sense, a lot of people don't, it's hard for them to accept a squeaky clean character. So the thing is, Reed is an ex MI10 agent, British Secret Service, and he has a checkered past. So let me see. I got this thing prepared because I knew you were going to ask me. I was actually hoping you'd ask me. So let me see if I can get through this. So, Black and White is the story of Reed Blackett, a retired British MI10 agent with a checkered past, who leaves behind a life of violence to take on the business world as an importer-exporter of fine commodities, such as the delicious brewery, a beer of this up and coming brewery, Sung Breweries, and so that's where Whitney Sung works. So that's White, aka White. So she's a brewery heiress, and she runs this family business with her uncle, and so they're kind of having hard times. So Reed is now an importer exporter, and so he's trying to turn over a new leaf, and he's trying to help this upstart business. And they have a great product. They have a great product, but they just don't have distribution. So then, while negotiating with the beautiful and headstrong brewery heiress Whitney Sung, Reed finds himself captivated by her intelligence and drive. But when a monster rises from the ashes of Whitney's past and sets her world on fire, Reed finds himself pushed back into a world of lies, subterfuge, and danger for which he was trained. And so that's basically he tries to he was trying to turn over a new leaf, trying to get past his old life. Because I mean, spies do some questionable things, and they're not supposed to question orders. So there's a lot of like killing without conscience. You're not supposed to ask questions of who these people are. You're supposed to just take orders. So I felt like if you had a really morally upright guy that's like his fiber is that, like a Superman or Captain America, what would that do to you? What would that do to you as a human being? Even though you might be going God and country, you might be thinking for the greater good, but maybe since you don't have all the information, maybe thinking, did I kill the right guy? Am I doing the greater good? And so those are the questions that he would ask himself, and then eventually, walked away from that life. So when the monster from Whitney's past comes, and I don't want to give away too much of the detail. You're just going to have to read the book. So when that guy comes back into from Whitney's past, he then has to help her in the only way he can, or the only way he knows how. And so he doesn't become a spy. He becomes a vigilante, but he's a vigilante with a set of ethics, a code of things that he will and will not do. And so he goes and tries to help her. So then the next paragraph is, it doesn't take long before Reed figures out that Whitney is no damsel in distress. It could be that she's the perfect yin to his yang, and together they form the vigilante team known as Black and White. So what happens is Whitney's kind of the gray area character. She's the character that thinks the ends justify the means. She's the one that thinks that you can be judge, jury, executioner. So she goes off. She goes off the deep end to try to bring down this monster from her past. But Reed realizes, because of his scars and because of his past, he doesn't want her to go through that. He doesn't want her to have to regret anything. So that's why he chooses to help her. And also, he's, like, I always like this argument for heroes, because he can. Why does Spider-Man do what he does? Is because he can. Because, with great powers comes great responsibility. So he has to use those powers to help people. Otherwise, he's just being self-serving and a selfish guy. So
you could
anyway,
say maybe that this is an internal. They represent sort of an internal conflict between passion and reason, you might say.
Yes, and that's why the black and white, the yin yang, because it can be all those things. logic, reason, logic, passion, just all the different opposites. So the way I'm thinking too is that Reed will, for the most part, in this storyline, he'll be the rock solid guy, but he also has that past. So in the after this, the story, the two issues kind of delve into it's Reed's origin, but it's mostly Whitney's origin. So then the next story arc will be focused more on Reed, and so Reed kind of starts coming unglued because of his past. He starts, that would be hard to deal with. Like it would be hard to kind of move on from maybe some really messed up stuff that you did, and maybe you never had answers to, you know, why or why what did you do this for.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a pretty compelling character. So then the second big story arc will kind of involve him trying to come to terms with his past and things that he's done. So I think then Whitney will be his strength, and Whitney will be the voice of reason when he starts kind of going off the rails. So I think like the yin yang and the black and white and all those things, I think those two characters can kind of be that for each other. So it won't be like one is always the same. The other one could be the voice of reason in one situation, and then in the other, maybe not so much. So I think together, they're the ones that bring the black and white justice to things in the gray area world.
Yeah.
So
on a scale of 1 to 10, how hot is she?
Oh, she's smoking hot.
Okay. So
she's hot. She's half Asian, half Chinese, and half American. So
wait, that's 3 halves.
Wait, Chinese and American. That's 2, right?
Okay, there you go. Oh, you said Asian. That's right.
Asian, yeah.
Asian is Chinese. So
Asian is
okay.
Chinese, but then I thought I'd clarify. Yeah, what kind of Asian?
Well, she maybe should have been half African and half white or something, and then black and white.
Oh my gosh, where were you 25 years ago, Mitch?
I was buying your comic book in 13 and probably couldn't have figured that out.
Thank you, by the way, if you did support me back then. I really do appreciate that.
I did. It's in my long boxes somewhere in my parents' attic or somewhere.
Oh, you
I haven't opened them up in probably 15 years. So all the old Image stuff. It's been a while since I've dug it out.
Yes,
I need to go dig it out and reminisce and think about, just smell them again, and think about what it was like to dream about doing what you did back then and that I'm doing now.
Yeah, I'm going through, I call it the Thibert archives now. So I'm currently going through, because I'm finding stuff for the Indiegogo, and we're going to have a tier that's going to be like a 90s grab bag. So I have the original Ash Can from 94. I have some trading cards that I put out through Image and Extreme. We used to have postcards. So when people used to literally write you letters and do fan art and send them to you, like I have actual fan art, physical fan art, not digital, and letters. And we found all those. And so when people would send stuff, we had a bunch of postcards made, and we would fill out the postcards and thank each and every one of those people for sending the artwork or sending the nice letters and things like that. So even then I was trying to get more of a personal connection like you guys are doing now, bringing it directly to the people. And so I have those postcards, and I had 2 different licensing ventures, and only one kind of worked out, and it was Pogs of all things, because Pogs in the 90s were kind of popular. So I have a bunch of Pogs that I'm going to make part of that 90s grab as well. So that's going to be the cool tier, I think. It's going to have all the 90s swag. Yeah.
Let's Indiegogo some Pogs. That's going to be cheap to make. We'll sell them for a set for $50 and $20 shipping. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but the thing is, we already have them. We have boxes. Well, we don't have boxes; they're pretty rare. But we had boxes of them, and I threw most of that stuff away, like maybe a couple years ago. So we were just going through, like I said, the vaults, and so all this stuff is very limited. I think we may have 100 copies of, that's the max that we have of most of these things. Huh. So it's pretty limited.
Well, we got some Pog fans in the chat. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think we can compete with with iPhone apps anymore. Maybe we could just do iPhone app Pogs.
Ooh, with the slammer. Oh, we have slammers too.
Yeah, and we'll just do a digital version.
Ooh, I like that. It could be
Yeah,
like one of those handhelds for your phone. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's just an iPhone app, and we'll do it in 3D. You can collect them all and in-app purchases.
Ooh, we can have them for all the comic skaters. So
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Hmm.
There you go.
I think that's kind of cool. Like you can play, see what it's like to like. It's like a '90s nostalgia 3D experience. Like you can play with Pogs, but with our characters on them.
I like that. And then you can actually kind of mix and match, so you can make like a certain stack. Like if you can get one of each one of ours, then somehow if you can topple that, then you get more points or something. We can actually build some rules around it and things. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Strengthen your stack by having one of each one of the the titles in that stack. So yeah, and then when you slam it, if it stands up, then you score more points or something.
We have a guest star in the chat. I believe this is a fake. I believe this is a phony Vox Day in the chat trolling you, Art.
Hi Vox, how are you?
We're going to call him Fake Vox Day. Says, what is Art talking about? This is why he doesn't work on Alt Hero. I'm sure you're busted up about that, Art.
I don't even really know what that is, so I'm kind of glad that I dodged that bullet.
He said, "So gay Batman? I'm not impressed." Fox not impressed.
Well, soon they'll probably.
I think he just sold some books. I think he just sold some books. Fox Day is in here selling books for you. He says. He also says, "This is hilarious." Okay, that's a long pitch, Art, for a bunch of splash pages. I'm gonna. That's a funny troll.
Yeah, is he funnier than the real Vox Day though?
Yeah, so far.
So far.
Okay, well, he kind of derailed me here, but yeah, Pogs are hot again. I think in the chat.
We'll bring him back.
Everybody's excited that Vox is here. Dynamo says Art has been through 73 colorists. It was an interesting story. Oh, and he just redacted his own message. Didn't want that out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I hate to hear about your colorist troubles. They'll all figure this out eventually. I think that everybody's just sort of afraid. Everybody's afraid of going broke, afraid of not paying their mortgage, afraid of thinking that people with status won't like them. And that's a stupid thing to think. Oh well. Well, we're here with all the cool kids, and the coolest of them all, Art Thibert.
Well, thank you, Mitch.
How long have we been going on here?
Not long enough.
Yeah. What else do you want to talk about?
Can you talk about any of your future projects, or are you waiting for those things?
No, I mean, I talked pretty publicly about the Futurists. Of course, right now we have Red Rooster, Golden Age, which is still in an in-demand store on Indiegogo, though I've taken down almost all of the special tiers. So we have a book called The Futurist that's I've been posting art for years. It's sort of danced around in my head for about 9 years. I was just talking to my partner about that yesterday, my writing partner, and or my collaborator, co-creator. I think Mark Pellegrini is going to help me write it. And so, yeah, we were looking at old stuff, and the initial concept started in like 2008, 2009. Yeah, it was 2008 when it started. In 2009, we got together and wrote the first script, which actually wasn't too bad, actually. We had a lot of fun doing it, even though it's a decade old. But yeah, so we're going to do that. And yeah, we're going to launch that on Indiegogo in I don't know. I don't want to put a date on it. I don't want to put a date on it quite yet. We have Butch Geis is going to be the artist, and he's an absolute legend. Everybody knows Butch.
Yeah.
He's kind of got a low profile on the internet. He's over on Facebook and posts a lot of cool art, but he's like a master. I mean, an absolute master artist. And Elizabeth colored him on some Captain America stuff and on Winter Soldier. Absolutely gorgeous. The Captain America pages that she colored over Butch are just mind-boggling. I need to dig those up and repost them and get people excited about Butch. It's kind of a shame he's not. Well, I mean, it's probably in his best interest. He's not out on Twitter and YouTube or anything. He just kind of keeps a low profile. But people need to know who he is, and they do, and they will. And the Futurist is going to look amazing, amazing. And I'm so excited to tell this story. I'm just very, very, very passionate about it. I'm going to talk more about it.
Yeah, he's really, really good. Where's the artwork posted at? Can we see any of that?
It's on my Instagram. There's plenty of it. And on my Twitter, if you probably just hashtag the Futurist, I probably hashtagged some of it. I have a website. Actually, go to, I'll put it in the chat. It's mary-muse.com, and that's got art from the Red Rooster and art from the Futurist up there.
Oh, cool. I'll check that out.
mary-muse.com. It didn't link appropriately, but you guys can figure it out. So yeah, we've got those two projects, that and the Red Rooster in the pipeline. I'm just going to be posting. Mark Pellegrini just sent me the whole script for 60 pages. He turned it in this week, and I'm going to start drawing it this week as well. As soon as we're done with this little coloring gig that we're wrapping up, it's one of our last contracts. So, and then I'm focusing on our business full time. Like I've got other ideas. I've got other things to do. I've got a lot of work to do. And I want to start doing more books with more people, more cool people that want to engage with the fans in a positive way. And that's what I'm all about. Art, I want the fans to get excited again. And I see people walking away. I see people walking away, like my buddy Chris, who's in the chat, who has 4 kids and has bought comics for, 25, 30 years, and just walked away from it. He spent, you guys would spend hundreds of dollars a month. And just, I'd talk to my friends, and they were like, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, it's like, what's going on with comics, man? It's just like, they saw all this stuff that's coming. Like, the consumers know when they're getting jerked around, man. They know it. They don't like it.
Well, even still, like they're not making these comics for kids. So even if like your friend reads comics, he can't even tell his young children to read them. Like, he can't turn them on to these books because a lot of them just aren't, the subject matter just isn't in a way that it's kid friendly. So there's a lot of gratuitous stuff that's happening in comic books, and that's another thing that I think should change, because I never heard one adult ever saying, you know what would make comic books better is if they were more adult. Like, I've never heard anybody ever say that before. Like, I just think it's the people that are making the comics that are making these assumptions. I don't think I've never heard anybody say that. I think the reason we all like comic books is because on some level we're childlike and we like that kind of entertainment, so we're adults, but we're kind of kids at heart, and we still like those stories. I don't think that the comics necessarily need to age with the older people, because who's the younger people that are going to be buying it and then turning it on to their children or whatever. So if it's so tailored to just one clientele, then I just don't understand where the growth is going to come from either.
It's mind-boggling, Art. It's crazy. We can't be the only ones that see it, but here it is. It's the way that the industry manifested. It kept chasing an older audience. I think it's probably they felt like they were chasing the sure dollars, because the comic book buyer, in my experience, is someone who is kind of habitual, maybe a little compulsive or addicted to a particular character or brand or whatever, and those were the sure bets. So it's a little easier to take a sure bet than it is to take a risk if you're a part of an institution or a company. And then you have some, the creators that wanted to push the boundaries, right? So because be artsy artists, and cool and be hip and, look good in front of the art school friends. And so they would make edgier stories because, comics hadn't done that. We'll go that direction. Comics has done that, but whatever. And as the industry shrank, it just got, I mean, those are my explanations of it. I'm sure there are plenty of other factors, but it's extremely short-sighted not to try to cultivate the next generation, and at least give things that like people can pass down to their kids and all that kind of stuff. So,
And I think, yeah, I think that the industry is also mistaking what is adult, because comic books dealt with adult situations when we were kids. And, I mean, obviously there's a generational difference between you and I, but when I was a kid, they were still dealing with adult situations or more mature situations, but they weren't doing it in a gratuitous way. And I think like when DC launched New 52, there had to have been a mandate that these were going to be more adult, but what that translated to was more gratuitous. So the language was harsher, there was more blood, and there was more sexual situations. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's adult or more adult. It just means it's more gratuitous, because
yeah,
you can watch something or read something and it can have adult themes and it can have some serious subject matter, but just not be handled in a gratuitous manner. And so I think that's the fundamental difference. Like, they're mistaking what is adult. Like, do we just start making more blood? I remember it was
yeah.
like Gail Simone, New 52 Batgirl. I don't know how anybody feels about Gail Simone. I know how you guys feel about. I was just joking. Um,
Well, I
but
think they
every
probably feel about her the same way that she treats some people on her Twitter. I
Yeah,
think that,
well, do you remember her Batgirl? My gosh, I couldn't even look at it anymore because I used to get all those books free from DC. I couldn't even look at it anymore. Batgirl got the crap kicked out of her every episode, every issue. And even on the cover, they had her in these like victim roles. Like, she was always getting beat up. She was always on the ground. She was always bloodied. She was always messed up. And I was thinking, this is feminism? This is a woman writing a female character, and this is your idea of like writing a strong female that just gratuitously is getting the crap knocked out of her. And I think that was the book that she got fired from, and then they petitioned to get her back, and then she started writing again, and then they just canceled the book. So clearly, who was she writing this book for? Like, I don't want to watch Batgirl every month get the crap. I mean, she was beat up in these issues. I mean, gratuitously beat up. And I was like, what young girl, like, if they're trying to inspire young girls, like, this is a strong, heroic female character, who wants to see that?
yeah, it's like animal on animal or animal violence or whatever. There's just some things people just don't want to see. But like in the Punisher, yeah,
Yeah.
let's go for it, man. Let's go for it. That's the ride we know we're gonna take with
And
that book.
Vertigo books exist, and more adult comic books exist, but these are books. I always say this. It's like, it's a character named Spider-Man. What adult is going to read a book called Spider-Man? Only a small child, a young person, is going to think that a character named Spider-Man is even cool. You know what I mean? Or Batman or Superman. Just the title alone is childlike.
Yeah,
He's a guy that got bit by a radioactive spider. There's no adult in his right mind that's going to just start buying Spider-Man and go, oh, yeah, that's cool. Only a kid. And then those kids get hooked and they love that form of entertainment and they just continue it. And there's no harm in that. But why do we need to take that away from even the adults that have been reading those earlier things by making things more adult or more
yeah,
gratuitous or less one and dones and all the other stuff that we've been talking about so far? I see that as fundamentally bad. And,
yeah. Well,
and
somebody had a great comment up above. It says not necessarily that it's just adult. It's just that it's vapid. So it's just kind of the emptiness that pervades a lot of the stuff. That it's just vapid. Like it's it may be titillating or whatever, which is fine. I mean, there's a place for all of that stuff.
yeah,
But make it great. There's no excuse
yeah.
not to make it great.
But also don't take certain characters and do that with as well as, I guess, because if this was a Vertigo book or something
Yeah,
that's more directed for a certain audience, then I think that's fine. But like, that's why I was trying to say it's like Spider-Man or Batgirl or those are definitely kid-like titles.
yeah,
In the name, the only one that's going to appeal to is a a young person. That's it, period. They were always designed for that. And that's why, like, as an adult or when you get older, you go, some of these things don't work. Yeah, because you're an adult now, and getting bit by a radioactive spider doesn't quite work for you because you know that you'd probably die or have some kind of horrible disease or some kind of cancer or something from being irradiated by this stuff. Like, yeah, it's made for a kid. It's
Let me
kid
see what you think
logic.
about this, Art. Is there's another kind of a related complaint that I have, or I stew on for a while. And I was talking to Doug TeNapel a little bit about this the other day in a private conversation. But so as the industry gets smaller and smaller, there are fewer and fewer comic book stores in the smaller markets. I mean, there's not one in my hometown. There's not one in a lot of hometowns all across the Midwest and the South and the Western states and stuff. Whereas like on the East, on the coast, probably not too difficult to get around to a comic book store in most places, but most of the country doesn't live there. So you have a large swath of the country that is completely not served at all, not even underserved. They're just not served, period. And so as they sort of tailor content to more urban markets, I think, well, it doesn't seem to be working, for one, for sales, but like you're completely ignoring the culture, the taste, the sensibilities of middle America in the content. And even and especially on the creator owned stuff where it just gets more and more niche, right? It's just more and more niche stuff. Like there's something to be said about, and this is what Doug TeNapel brought up, Cars, like the movie Cars. It is for like the kids of NASCAR dads. And my nephews loved it. And it's very junior, right? Spider-Man is a little bit more, for preteens and whatnot, but that kind of thing where it's kind of made for everybody. It's sort of accessible to everyone. These stories that touch on that, there's all this talk of representation. Why can't we have a more universal representation? Why does it have to be so specialized and so niche and targeted to such a small audience? I mean, I think there's a reason that the X-Men resonated so much in the late 80s and early 90s with kids all across the countries, because they sort of tapped into these universal teen angst, these sort of coming of age insecurities that we all have, this feeling of this feeling of being isolated from peers, or feeling special but kind of an oddball. Like everybody feels that way,
Yeah.
And now it's about like things that are less universal and more specific and more niche. And to me, that's again short-sighted. It's not growth focused for the business. I don't know. You can pick up. I'm not really asking you a question. I'm just laying out some thoughts I have, and you can take that. And
well, the thing is like
it.
you said, like the X-Men was always like, without getting into specifics, it was always about like racism. There was always about like being an outsider, not just being an outcast or a weirdo, but also maybe having a different color skin or being a different ethnic background or whatever. So the whole thing is, this was a metaphor for all those things, but they didn't hit the nail on the head. It wasn't insulting. You know what I mean? They weren't like in your face about it. And now the new stuff is like, it's like, oh, this is a transgender this, so you need to feel this, or you have to feel this. Where before it was just kind of like, figure it out. Oh, it's about a bunch of different oddballs from different ethnic backgrounds, different skin colors, all these things. Oh, maybe that's kind of like society. Maybe that's a parallel to the world, and that somehow all these people are at the Xavier School and they can all get along and they can all fight for a common good. They can pull together and work as a team. And I always thought that's the metaphor, right? It's society, it's life. Let's all work together.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you look like.
Yeah. And now we're all working together right here and getting attacked for it. Isn't that weird?
It is weird. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, in a diverse group of creators with lots of different ideas, with sometimes radically differing opinions on things, and we kind of even slug it out occasionally.
And it's okay, right? I
and
mean,
it's okay.
it's what you do at the end. It's like we can disagree and then we can shake each other's hands and still respect each other as human beings. And my gosh, when I was a kid, that was just understood. Now it seems progressive. It almost seems progressive to talk like that, which is really strange for me, being an older guy. Like, really? This is really, it's odd. It's strange.
You want to touch on something a little bit more political, Art, or is that the third rail for you?
Um, I don't know. I mean, you can say your piece, and I can
Okay.
yay or
Well,
nay.
I'm gonna read a chat here. Ben Thomas says
Okay.
he makes a bold claim. I'm gonna see if you can back this up or what you think about it. Ben Thomas says SJWs aren't complex enough to understand allegory.
And
What would you say
by
to
the way,
that,
that was the word I was looking for, Ben. So thank you with the
Art?
allegory word. I was searching for that, but I must admit I'm still a little nervous going on these chats. So thanks for helping out, Ben. Um, I don't really know a lot of SJWs firsthand, so I don't know how multifaceted they think. But it would seem that way to me. It would seem like they're not exactly being very fair-minded or very open-minded, or at the very least respectful to the other opinion. And the reason one of the reasons I'm here talking to you guys right now and hanging out with Mitch is because they're so finite in their decisions as well. Like what Mitch and I were saying, like, yeah, we disagree, but we respect each other enough to go, hey, it's okay. We shake each other's hands and then we just agree to disagree and we go in our own direction. We don't try to destroy each other. We don't try to get each other fired and things like that. And that's the scary aspect that I find on that side. I don't see it as much on the right. I see it more as a left thing, and an extreme left at that, that they aren't happy until there's blood in the water. They're not really happy until they've destroyed somebody. And even like Zach has pointed out on his show, even then, sometimes it's not enough. You know what I mean? Like, even then, they won't let it go. So I just don't know what their end game is. I don't know what they want. Do they want ultimate annihilation? That there's only people like them that live in the world? That there's absolutely no, I don't know, for the lack of a better word, pushback. There's no there's no yin to the yang. There's no, you know, there's
Yeah.
none of that. There's no different opinions.
Well, what a depressing and uninspired world that would be.
Exactly.
And it seems to me it's fascinating that there are so many people with this, and it's just such a recent phenomenon. I mean, it's always been around a little bit, but it's inculcated within the arts so much, and it seems actually anathema to what creative expression should be about and was about, which is sort of challenging each other, challenging preconceived notions, but also adhering to sort of ideals that were beyond ourselves, above ourselves. The notion of extreme competition and excellence that kind of goes in hand with that. Ideals of beauty and of morals and of writing and craft, because a lot of hard work has to go into that. And
Yeah.
I think competition is part of that. Critique is part of that. This sort of aversion to being critiqued and taking it as if it's some type of personal attack, and the desire to think of things in terms of segregated groups, and to flush out people who are not on board with particular ideologies or whatever. And this sort of strange witch hunt style campaigns that go on, and it's art, to me, it seems like if it goes on like this, and if these types of attitudes and ideologically driven people win, it's the death of the arts, in my opinion.
Yeah.
There's what's the point? What's the point in being an artist if you can't be bold and express yourself? If you can't actually, if going out and trying to create something like the Red Rooster or whatever, and try to serve an audience that's upset and just be professional to them, try to do something, uh, yeah, and to be ostracized for doing so. I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know. We're
absolutely
in a weird
crazy.
place. We're just in a weird
Yeah,
place.
I've been on this earth for 56 years. I've never ever seen anything like this. The division, and I don't really care if you're right or left or if you're Republican or Democrat, but I saw a lot of division in the 8 years of the Obama years. I saw more division, and I was at the beginning really hopeful. I was thinking we can finally get past, this black white issue. We could finally get past all of, like somehow the odds are stacked against certain minorities in this country and things like that. I mean, hell, the most powerful position in the United States now is held by an amazing black man, and then all that guy did was preach division. All that guy did was keep pushing for like this group, that group, and I found a lot of division in that 8 years,
Me too.
and now and now with Donald Trump, I see two extremes. So I see the left and the right, and so I see now just majorly pushback. So there's no middle ground. There's just the right and left, and all they seem to want to do is just annihilate each other. There's no real uh, desire to
Yeah.
work together. It's more about just destroying one group or the other. And I would say I'm way more right leaning at this point in my life than ever before, just because I think the right really needs to push back. Because if we're going to live in this world of extremes, right, we're going to have to push back in an extreme way to just try to stabilize or to find some kind of middle ground again,
Yeah.
um, to
Well,
just kind of equal the playing field.
yeah, we're going to have to, maybe at least enough people need to stand their ground. And it's sure, to me, yeah, I felt the same way you did. And it just, I think history is going to see that as just a giant opportunity wasted, to, you know, yeah, just a giant opportunity wasted. And actually, yeah, the division sound. Anyway, Chris McCroskey, thank you for $2. He says, when everyone gets a trophy, no one is a winner,
Exactly.
and everybody's
Yeah.
a wiener. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that
Everybody's a wiener.
I
That
think
just
that's
struck
kind
me
of
as
part
funny.
of it. It's like
Yeah.
the everybody gets a sticker generation. You tried, you tried, and that's good enough, and that can't be good enough. Like we have to be exceptional and challenge each other, and that means challenging each other in the arts and challenging each other with ideas, but also handling it in a way that's civil.
Yes.
And I see
Yes.
that just completely going away, and that's there's a lot of blame to go around for that, I would say.
Yeah. I think there's going to have to be some kind of middle ground that's met. And I don't have any reason to think that it's going to come anytime soon, um, because I think there's just too much power in the division right now for certain people. So they're just going to keep placating the division to gain short term power, but never ever looking at the whole. And the whole is, yeah, you're going to gain this in a short, in a small, I guess, timeline, but the ultimate good is not being served. And by the ultimate good not being served is like how it used to be, where if the law is good enough for Mitch and it's good enough for whoever, then it's good enough for me. You know, if these laws and these things are more universal and that everybody then can benefit from these laws or these rules or whatever, then you truly know that it can be fair. If it's not, then you know it's serving a certain party or a certain purpose or a certain person or a certain group. Because if that doesn't serve the greater good, then it's serving a special interest.
Yeah, exactly. Mike Miller of Blacklist Universe is in the chat.
Mike,
and
who?
Mike, yeah, he's some kind of like fringe internet weirdo that hangs around. Yeah, Blacklist Universe, I think they had a big drawing contest on his channel tonight. He says Gary Shipman won by a landslide, I hear.
Ooh.
So Mike got cucked on his own stream by Gary Shipman.
Mike's a brave man.
Yeah, he is a brave man. All right. All right. Well, I tried to wade you into some controversial waters there, Art. I think you handled it very, very well.
You baited me, and I took the bait. I jumped right on the hook. I'm your trout right now, Mitch.
Well, the chat wants to know how you handle these kinds of things, because you know these kind of cultural topics have to be addressed. You know, they have to be talked about publicly. So the chat wants to know where we stand on these types of issues, I think. Anybody have any questions in the chat for Art Thibert? How about that? Let's you guys, because I'm going to start winding this down. So I'm going to throw this out to the chat. You guys have questions for Art about Black and White, which is going to be launching in 2 days. It's going to have a gorgeous cover colored by Kyle Ritter, and yeah, that's going to be fantastic.
If you guys missed the Kyle Ritter stuff, definitely watch this in the morning or rewatch this video because it'll all be explained.
Yeah, are you going to have pages? You're going to show the cover, right? So that'll be shown, and you'll have a video. You're going to have some pages to show as well.
The problem is a lot of the pages are colored by a lot of different people. So I think I have to show something. I could do black and white like Mike did, which was pretty brave, and then he posted color stuff later as it was being done. So I'm not sure. I might do it like Mike, but I'm not sure I'm as brave as Mike. Or I might just put up the color pieces that stand out now that I have colored, and then just underneath them I'll say, you know, this is not actual, you know, this won't be used in the book. This is not actual artwork in the book, just so they can see, you know, what it will potentially look like.
I think you should put the color pages, even if they're not the colors that you're going to use, because color is just going to sell you better.
I agree. And then I'll just have the disclaimer that this won't be, you know, this is not final artwork or finished artwork. Yeah. That most likely it'll look better. It'll even be better.
All right, so we're going to rapid fire some questions here. How's your father, asks Art. He says, ask Art if he's allowed back at DC Comics. Have you burned your bridges, Art? It's a weird world. Like, I mean, sometimes I wonder if, like, I don't know if I ever want to go back, but I mean, I'd rather do this. But
I think I'm in agreement with you, Mitch. This is where my heart's at. This is where my heart's at right now. I'm hoping the fan base is as bold and as supportive as they seem to be up to this point. I hope they embrace black and white because, like I said, this is where my heart's at. I'm like you, Mitch. I always wanted to do these type of projects when I broke in. The only reason I didn't stay independently and the only reason I don't do more independent projects is it's so hard to make a living doing it. But with this new paradigm, this new business model that you guys have pioneered and that I'm graciously, you know, that you've let me step into, I'm hoping that maybe I never have to go back.
Well, you know? I would love to see more artists take a risk and do what you're doing and do what Mike Miller's doing and myself and Elizabeth and everybody else that's kind of moved into this space. Some felt, you know, kind of pushed into it. And some said, well, like, you know, me, it's like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. I mean, my back was kind of against the wall in many ways. I mean, we had a lot of people kind of turned on us. I think the chat knows most of that story. But I mean, I probably could have groveled my way back in, but I'm not a beggar.
Yeah.
I am, that's not me. So, all right. So Eric Huffles. So basically what I want to say is, Art, any more of your friends, any more pros that want to come out and take this risk and do this, my platform is available to you. I would love to see more.
Yeah, I've been trying, like, with Hi-Fi and even Snakebite. I mean, I've been trying, but the fates have not aligned themselves. It's just not really happening.
There's a lot of fear out there. You guys don't have to be afraid. Measure your risk appropriately. Everybody's got just different risk assessment levels. So, be sensible, but don't be afraid of the industry family. You don't want to be bullied by some mafioso types who want you not to leave the family. So be brave, be realistic, be sensible, and consider your options. And just know that this platform is available to you.
That's very nice. That's very cool, Mitch.
Well, thank you. I do try to be gracious. So Arik Hutfless, I can never say his name right, asks, what tools does Art use for inking?
I use a Winsor Newton Series 7 watercolor brush. Occasionally, Raphael. Depends on what I can get, because the Winsor Newtons are getting harder to find. And I usually use a 2. Mike Miller says that's a baby brush because I think he uses a 3 or 4. I know they hold more ink, but I just can't get the tip that I want with a bigger brush.
I use a number 6. Sometimes a number 8.
Oh, that's right. We had the conversation. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So bigger is better. Yeah. Mitch,
bigger is better. Bigger is better every time.
The bigger man. If they hold more ink, I understand the benefit, but I just don't have the control that I'd like to have. So as far as brush, that's what I use. And I just have given up. I'm not like Mitch. I haven't found the literal golden nib. I'm using a Hunt 102. And the reason I do that is I used to get the deleter nibs or the gelates. I don't even think you can get those anymore. But I used to get the different nibs, and they're too hard to find. The Hunt's fine. The only thing I don't like about the Hunts is that there's no quality control. So from nib to nib, they can vary in flexibility and in durability. So I don't like that. But the way I look at it now is I have boxes and boxes of these things. And so if one nib's not to my liking, hey, there's a cat.
Yeah.
I'll just ditch it and then get another nib. So yeah, the Hunt 102.
Okay. All right. You heard it there. So we're going to rapid fire a few more questions. This is Chumley, everybody's favorite guest star.
Chumley.
He came over here and wanted some rubs. If I don't give them to him, he's going to annoy the hell out of you guys.
That's a big cat.
He's pretty good size. It's like 11 pounds. It's just a little deceiving. Oh, his nose is filthy. Oh, man. You're making a mess of yourself on the internet. Okay, March Hare asks, this is rapid fire. What happened to Snakebite?
In a nutshell, I asked him to do some art corrects on the background, and so he refused to do them. And I asked him if he could send me the high res so I could do them myself, and he flipped out and he called me a bunch of expletives, and then he quit.
Weird. So, I'm sorry that happened to you, Art. That's weird business, man. Weird people. I don't know who Snakebite is, but that's no way to behave. So, all right, the next question. Art, this is Matt Hayes 2000. Art, did you draw Batman versus Predator? How was that experience?
I did not work on that book.
Okay, well, that answers that question. Sierra Whiskey has no question, but says, Art is such a nice guy. I agree. James Dean Company, thank you for $5. Art, what are your thoughts on book length for crowdfunded books?
Book length? What is
book
that?
Length, like the length of the issues, like the length of the books. Like, what are your thoughts on the length?
You mean like a 22-page story or 20-page story with like a versus a 48-page or something like that?
For crowd-funded stuff for these projects, like Red Rooster is 60 pages, and I think Lone Star is too.
Well, especially for what like you're doing, Mitch, and what we're doing, these are origin stories. So I think you can tell a better origin story if you have 48 pages to work with versus like a 20 or 22-page story, because a 20 to 22-page story is very limiting. You know, Mitch, as soon as you start trying to block things out, you realize 22 pages isn't that much. It's 6 panels per page. There's not a lot of room there for storytelling. 48 pages, I think you can tell a better origin story. So I think for these crowdfunded, the longer, like at least 48 pages, is a better way to go.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we couldn't tell our story in 48. We had to do 60. It wasn't enough. Mike, do you want in? Somebody's saying if Mike wants in, he can come in. Unless you got to run, Art. My cat wants out of here.
Well, if Mike's coming in, I'll take a quick pee break, and then I'll talk all night if you guys want to go.
Well,
as long as the people are digging it.
We'll let the chat decide. If the chat wants to bring Mike Miller in, it's like the Roman Emperor thing. We get the thumbs up or the thumbs down on Mike Miller.
Okay, here's
execute
mine.
him.
Here's mine. Let's see. Okay, I'm thumbs up for Mike Miller.
Okay, I don't know. I'm undecided. I'm gonna have.
You want to go to bed?
Well, I want to get another page or two done. Get this project the hell out of my studio. I want it gone.
Dude, I've been there. I've been there.
It's just like the one that won't ever die.
I know.
Get distracted and like, yeah. So yeah, I respond to the will of the crowd. So that's me. Let's see. Let me. I've got some more questions in here. I know I have a few super chats too. Ask Art how many more issues of Super Sons he is on, please.
Well, this will tie back to, I think it was Ben's question. I left DC under what I thought was good circumstances. We'll find out. Like you said, Mitch, this is a weird industry. I can't predict anything and how anybody's going to react to anything anymore. But I didn't leave them in a lurch. I left them with plenty of time to find somebody else. And I had conversations with my editor and the higher ups at DC. So as far as I know, it was good. And I left on issue 3. And I know a lot of guys in Comicsgate like got persecuted and things, but that's not my story. My story is I chose, believe it or not, I chose to come in here and be abused by the rest of the industry, just because I really believe in it. And I think this is a great home and place to be for creator-owned projects. And the fan base, like you guys, are amazing, and you're supporting these projects. And I just don't think there's nothing else right now that even comes close to this platform that's being built right now. I think this is historical. That's the way I'm looking at it. I'm looking at this as this is going to be the next really, really big way to get new products out there and get new books out there. I really believe it in my heart of hearts.
Wow, that's powerful coming from Art Thibert, who I think has probably more experience in this kind of stuff than all of us, I think. Yeah, definitely. So that's awesome, Art. All right, I'm going to skip down to the next super chat, who is Stephen Wagoner. Stephen Wagoner, thank you for $10. Maybe a comic using old school Stalinist propaganda art style, but with the hero being an underground criminal capitalist, quote unquote, of criminal. Call it samizdat. I don't know what samizdat is. And let them put that in their pipe and smoke it, he says.
We'll get Nasser to write that.
Yeah, that sounds like something Nasser could do. It would be a horror story. Stalinist Russia, I wouldn't want to be there.
Yeah.
Although Nasser may not have the type of life experience to write such a tale. I don't know. Maybe we can challenge him. So, all right. I think I'm actually getting tired. I'm going to go down on Mike Miller. We'll talk to him later on. I want to get this project done. I'm going to scroll through and make sure there are no more questions for rapid fire questions for Art Thibert. I'm kind of missing this conversation. Everybody's excited about Chumley. Okay, I'm way behind on the chat. Everybody got real chatty.
When the cat showed up?
When the cat showed up. Oh, we've got there's some thumbs down. Mostly thumbs up for Mike. So everybody likes Mike, even though I gave him a thumbs down. I think, oh, he's going to get Aloha started. So I give Mike a thumbs down, but almost everybody else loves Mike. So he's got, he doesn't have to, he can walk away with his head held high, even though he got rejected here and lost an art contest on his own stream.
Oh my gosh. Man, that hurt from over here. Well, you know what, Mitch, in a strange way, you saved me from that, because last night when I was drawing with those guys, they talked about this contest, and I kept trying to get Ethan and all those guys to sign off on like a really simple cartoon character. And so I brought up Casper, and then Ethan just took it on a whole tangent about dead babies and things like that. But that's a subject for another time. But I would have loved it if we could have just drawn something simple. So I'm kind of glad I dodged that bullet, and that you saved me from that, because I don't think I would have won that competition. I probably would have failed miserably.
All right. Yeah, I think everybody had a lot of fun. I think we ended up getting quite a few viewers in here. I hope everybody's very, very, very excited about the remastered black and white. I think some great things in store for you all. I'll have Art again on after the book comes out, or after the Indiegogo is live at some point, and we'll maybe talk a little bit more in depth about that. So thank you all for coming. You can hit the like button. Mike Miller might actually hit the dislike button to get back at me with a thumbs down. So you can give me the thumbs up. You can subscribe to my channel. Make sure you're still subscribed. You can check out Red Rooster Golden Age on Indiegogo.com. It's still in an in-demand store, and it's still hot stuff. So thank you all. Have a wonderful night. Thank you so much, Art, for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Mitch.
All right. Bye-bye. Good night.
Have a good night.